So this is part whatever. Hollywood parties been and gone. Now I'm in the hostel, and you know, I've had some great experiences in LA, no doubt. You know, got to find out about the city in lots of ways, its people, and you know, again, when you're traveling like this, you know, it's not like the holiday brochure. You know, it's like real life. You know, so you end up having experiences like gate crashing, Hollywood parties. You know, that doesn't happen. You know, if you book the holidays, so it's proper traveling, and if you're willing to take the risks, you know, you're going to end up in, you know, really funny situations. Well, that was another that just came to me head there as well. I remember for some reason I was in a building in LA and I got lost, and there was a door, right? So I walked through this door and I was on a stage, and there was empty seats in this theatre, and there was this director fella sat at the front, because I'd heard I just sussed it straight away. And there was these actors on the stage. It all stopped and they looked at me, and he stood up and sort of, you know, what's going on here? Can you move the fuck off our stage? And I've just sort of went, oh, sorry, it's the wrong door. And I've left. I don't know how I ended up there. But I think as I walked away, I was thinking, shit, that could have been my moment. You know, if it was going to happen for us in Hollywood, surely I would have walked onto stage by accident and the director would have said, stop, halt. Wow, who is this guy? This is the face I've been looking for this next movie. Where you from, buddy? But it didn't happen. It was just, get the fuck off my stage, please. We're busy. So neither I think Steve might have suggested porn. I think he did. What about the porn industry? And you know, obviously, you know, you need to have certain gifts to be confident enough to do porn, and that wasn't going to happen. And I didn't know why it would enter Steve's head, because I didn't think he had particularly special gifts either. But you know, I think because there was a couple of the lasses was doing porn, like, in the hostel. You know, there was a lot of stuff going on, like, but you know, that's going to be scraping the barrel, isn't it? You know, well, you know, depending on what you're into, like, you know, well, I wouldn't do that. Well, depending on how much money it was, like. So where are we now? Where are we now? I'm in the hostel. Porn's off the menu. Porn's not going to happen. Gear, West Hollywood. Building sites. Been there, done that. Field relationships with Chinese girls. That's not going to happen. And just the overall experience was at an end, and I need to get some cold air, I think, by now, you know. And I'm looking at the map, you know, I'm thinking, Steve, why don't we just like go from here to here, which was Vancouver. I says, because now we've been in the States a while, you know, and we heard that the sort of thing to get around that was, at the time anyway, I don't know if it wouldn't be like that now, I doubt it, was you would leave the States, you know, literally for a week or a day, and then you could cross back over the border and get yourself another 6 months. Something like that was going on. So, well, it doesn't matter. We'll just go now, and then we can always come back to the States. We've got that option straight away. So, you know, I says, let's go on up to Canada, you know. Somebody's might have said something like, you know, you can get on the fishing boats up there, up on the west coast of Canada. There's fishing boats you could get on there and make a shit ton of money, and you know, everybody's happy, you know. So that's possibly been it. I remember. So I remember, again, long bus journeys. I remember being in San Francisco, going across the bridge and thinking, oh, this is the bridge, San Francisco. Then in the bus station on a night with this young transvestite guy hanging about there, in his stockings and that. I don't know if he was homeless, but so I was a kip anyway, so I knocked off the kip. So that was that night in San Francisco. I think Steve might have been saying the next morning, did you hear that knocking? I said, no, I was out. Like, oh, it's just this fucking banging going on. No. So off we went on the bus then up to Canada. I remember being at the Canadian border. My money's getting seriously low. And because Steve had worked in London for like 10 years, a painter and decorator or something, he was carrying, he had cards on him, which I didn't. I only had money from what I made in sort of 6 months on my motorcycle as a motorcycle courier in London. So Steve was carrying a lot more money. So, when your money's running low and you've not really got that much to start with on you, it makes the experience more on edge, really. Not to take anything away from Steve's experiences either. He was, like I've said before, it doesn't matter how much money you're carrying around with you, like in cards and stuff and savings, if you're in dangerous situations, you're in dangerous situations. It's, you're living the adventure. I'm not taking that away from him, but certainly it just gives it more of an edge if you're really running low on money. So Steve says, well, look, I'll lend you the money. I'll lend you, $500 or something. Keep it going. We'll get up to head up north. We'll get up where people saying the bloody fishing boats, or we'll get some workers, and then you can pay us back. So, I'm humming and hawing about what I'm thinking, because, we've just been all the way around the States by this point, and it's been fantastic. And there's loads of fucking stuff I probably missed out. I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling tired. What I've sort of realised in these sort of things later on, like when you're travelling, you do feeling tired that you kind of gone, you literally cannot go on anymore, is have a holiday. Because when you're travelling into adventure, you're not having a holiday. Like it's full on. Like, so, you just relax, and then just come back to the adventure after. Just stay somewhere and just stay in a tent, or if you've got the money, book yourself into somewhere. Just take time out, The money there wasn't there for that. So, but I suppose long bus journeys of a day or two, 3 days even, would kind of rest you. You'd be on the bus. So, let's go for it, Let's do it. We'll do that, So we ended up via Prince George, a town in British Columbia, which is the state that's on the west coast of Canada. Big state, very big place, and it goes all the way up to the border of Alaska. So all of that coastline goes onto the Atlantic Ocean, and it's cold. It's cold from the bottom and then obviously it's ridiculously cold at the top. So Prince Rupert's quite high up, it's quite high up. It turns out if you're on a fishing boat, you're not just in northwest Canada waters fishing, you're actually in southern Alaskan waters fishing. So that's how cold it is. There's Alaskan fishing boats out there as well. I didn't know that at the time. Like, I was soon to find all this out. So we're on the Greyhound, the bus. It's a long drive. I'm resting. Steve's resting. I'm looking out the windows. There's a bear and walking along the side of the road like a stray fucking dog with bear cubs. And I'm fucking, Steve, man, look at that. Bears and the fucking hell, I think me and Steve, what we were talking, because he's from Scotland, like the west coast of Scotland, a very small town, right? And where they do have fishing boats, but Steve never done any fishing as a kid on any fishing boats. That industry is long gone. But I think Steve probably wanted a break as well, and we sort of had a rough idea that Canada with the mountains and that maybe it's a bit like Scotland, and if there's fishing boats, we can maybe just sort of chill out. And I've always been loved Scotland. I spent a lot of my life in Scotland, traveling around, and you know, it turns out Canada it's basically Scotland on steroids. I mean, the mountains are so big in Canada. It makes the Highlands look like just a group of hills, basically, like Cumbria or something. Cumbria's beautiful, like, but it's immense. It's immense. It's the most beautiful place on the planet, Canada. It really is. I mean, I was walking. This was like months later. I was walking down the road, middle of nowhere, with Steve, and I saw this valley. I stopped. I says, "Fucking hell! Look at that!" And he says, "What?" I says, "Look. Where's the pterodactyls? Where's the fucking dinosaurs? Where's the T-Rex? Where's the dinosaurs? Look at that!" And Steve's going, "Fucking hell, aye." It was just looking. The only thing it was missing was the dinosaurs. It was just like going back in time. It's like if you'd walked in that direction through that big valley, you'd have been going back to 5 million BC or something. It was that. So that's Canada, like that's what it's like. So they're on the bus, and grizzly bears alongside the road, common. Saw some more. Eventually, when we did get up to Prince Rupert, like after I sort of noticed after a couple of days, like down at the sort of docks where all the fishing boats were, you get these big white posts that are like for the jetties and stuff, big made out of tree trunks, and they'd be like flat on the top, and on the top of every one was like bald eagles, I mean, they're the size of dogs, like a medium-sized dogs, and they're as common as pigeons. These massive things, absolutely beautiful, absolutely remarkable it was, and I hope the place is still like that. I hope it's still got that wildlife, Prince Rupert. I mean, it's probably got expanded a lot, but I hope Canada's retained all its wildlife and the way it was like in 1997, because it was something I'll never ever forget. Like, I mean, to go from Hollywood, all of that, to this, within the space of like 5 days, bus journeys, and then you're on another planet, And this suited me down to the ground. Well, it did at first anyway. I like the heat, but just not too, well, I don't like the heat. But it's all right for a little bit. So this was cold. Well, it wasn't so cold, it was wet, and then it was wet the next day. We got on a campsite and it's still fucking raining. I mean, we should have realised, like on the campsite just outside of Prince Rupert, there was all these sort of wooden platforms where you put the tent on that they had built. I mean, that was a sign anyway. So it rains that much, you cannot have your tent on grass because you just be waterlogged, like. So that you have to put your tents on these wooden platforms, which is what happened. And it just kept raining, and then you find out that that's what it does. For as much as it's sunny in LA, it's rainy in British Columbia. That's what it does. It rains. And we're there. Steve, there's a strip bar. There's a strip bar on the main street. So I think Steve went to the strip bar, and I think he met her last day, right, Steph, and that got on to this. She was staying in these wooden houses, very old museum pieces, with these 4 other lasses, young lasses, our age sort of thing, and that was a missed opportunity as well. Like there's 2 opportunities I should have took, and I fucking didn't, like a numpty, fucking hell, traveling around with a broken heart, man. Well, I'm not gonna, I've been burned once too often. Otherwise, I'd be speaking to you right now from Canada. And no regrets to her. No regrets. Absolutely no regrets. I was married to music, man. Always happy. Free spirit. No regrets. Too many of getting married, done all that, getting divorced. He's paying for the kids that he never sees. Just shit. Glad I never went there. I'm quite happy. But, to get me leg out a couple of times would have been nice. But, I wasn't in the mood. So, I remember the lasses weren't there. So one day I'm smoking away on a cigarette. And Steve sat there on this wooden porch. I mean, these were like museum pieces, I think they were custodians of it, these young lasses as well as having other jobs. Like one of the lasses worked in a strip bar. And they were away, and I've dropped a cigarette, and it's went down in between the floorboards on this porch. And straight away it started smoking come up. I says, for fuck's sake, Steve, get some water. So, Steve would never run, but even he walked quite quickly into the building and come out, he's sort of relaxed about it. And I'm going, fuck's sake. Anyway, it didn't go off because we're sort of staying there. We're staying there a couple of nights, but I think he might have let that slip to Steph, this lass who he's sort of seeing now. And she's probably thought, well, this guy's a fucking fire starter. And these are museum pieces. These are like the oldest built wooden buildings in Canada, you'll have to go back to the campsite, which is what happened. So I'm on the campsite. I made mates with these couple of French lads, They were waiting for a boat as well. So the idea is we get on a fishing boat. That is the plan. Now, rain. Steve turns up. She says, Rob, no, we didn't. What we do is one day we just go. So we've been here for a week now, couple of weeks. Let's just have a walk down along. Apparently, you just walk down and ask on fishing boats, and you'll get a job. So that's what we did. I don't know exactly how it happened, but I ended up on a fishing boat with these two fellas. The one fella, skipper on, and the other lad was Fisherman Bill. And this was a crab fishing boat. Now, I don't know what the fuck any of this means, right? So Steve ends up, he's on a small, mine's it's just a small boat, like it's only enough, it's just a small fishing boat, right? It's not a big trawler out, I know that TV program, it was like that, but imagine being on a tiny little fishing boat. They're on these, I can't remember the name. I cannot watch that program because it's like, it just makes us feel sick, because that's what it is. Steve ended up on this little fishing boat. It was just him and this drunk fella. I mean, they're all drunk, and that was prawn fishing, right? So, when we got back after the couple of weeks stint, now I'm going to tell you about what happened on the boat for me, my experience. When we got back though, I told Steve what it'd been like, and I thought he was going to say something like, oh, well, it was actually, I found it a quite enjoyable experience. But he was exactly the same. He was like, fucking hell, that was the worst 2 weeks of my life. He says that he was a complete alcoholic, the skipper. It was just him and this bloke for 2 weeks out at sea on this little, he says the first day he got put on the steering wheel. He had to steer the boat. He never steered a fishing boat before in his life. And then he says this fella was just zonked out, drunk. And Steve being Steve, you see, wouldn't have stayed up steering this. So Steve, once he's seen he's asleep, he's just went, well, fuck it, I'm going to sleep as well. Steve said he woke up this massive clunk, and he says they'd crashed into a little fucking island. Crashed into a fucking island. So he got a bollocking for that. But he was out the whole rest of the time with them. Didn't make much money. And, actually, I don't know if he was out that whole time with them. Let's just presume he was, and he'd done his stint. I think he probably was, because he might have got the sack for that, like, you know, for being asleep at the wheel when he should have been steering the boat. Well, my experience was skipper on. You know, I'm sort of 28. Skipper on's about 40. The other fishing lad, fisherman Bill, he's like about 40. Local lads. Bill's he's a canny lad. He's a Hell's Angel. He's a canny lad. And skipper on, kind of a bully, sort of bit overweight and all that. Nobody liked him. And I didn't know that. I just picked the boat, you know. Yeah, sure, you can come and jump on the boat. He says, skipper on guns. He says, have you been on a fishing boat before? I says, well, I says, oh, I says, I've been on, well, he says, you've been on boat before. I says, I've been on boats loads of times. I says, we've got like a ferry between England and Europe, you know. I've been backwards and forwards on the ferry loads of times, no problem. He's just nodding, you see, because he doesn't know what the fucking hell North Sea ferries is. A P&O ferries, it could be a little boat for all I know. So he's just, right, okay, and all right, and come back tomorrow, and we're setting sail. So we set sail, the three of us, on this crab fishing boat, and it takes like about 6 hours to get away from the smaller islands around the coast there. And I'm just puking up the whole fucking time, like, you know, just ill as fuck. And this is before we've even gotten out to sea, you know. And he's probably being a fucking clever shite, saying, I thought you'd been on boats before. And I was like, fucking half, like, you know, puking up the fuck. Next day, we're out at sea. I'm fucking still not right, and I'm getting me sea legs by the end of the second day. But you know, the whole experience was something that I ain't proud of, like, and I wish I'd never done, because you fucking die doing shit like that. Like, I later found out that, you know, it's the most officially, this is not made up, it's officially the world's most dangerous job in the world, crab fishing off the northwest coast of Canada, southern Alaska, because of the amount of deaths that happen, amount of fishing boats that go down. Because it's, I mean, Skipper Ron said this when we were away. He says, I don't know if you know this, he says, but these are the second worst, most dangerous waters in the world, you know, after Cape Wrath. And I was like, oh, I've heard of Cape Wrath. You know, when you're in situations, you know, you just do it, you know. I mean, what the fuck's, you're there. He says, what, you know, I remember just fucking, the first thing you start to notice when you're on a smaller fishing boat is the size of the waves, like on that program where it's the trawler fishing, that's it, the Deadliest Catch, that's what it was called. I've never watched them, like, I've watched bits of them, but I kind of fucking stomach it, you know, just reminds us. But when you're on a trawler boat ship, yeah, waves are big, you know, but when you're on a little fishing boat, those waves are there. They're fucking, no exaggeration. Like, all I can see it is, in terms of Britishness, a semi-detached house, you know, the height from the ground to the roof, constant big waves like that, right? You know, very rarely, I would say 80% of the time, you are rolling up and down enormous fucking waves. So when you're on the boat and you're looking outwards, you're not seeing the sort of skyline where the sea meets the sky. You're just seeing a wall of water. You're seeing, because that's the fucking wave that you're rolling up, and then you're down and you're looking. It's just, you're only seeing the sea. If you stare upwards, you might see the sky. And also, you know, you've got wellies on, because you realise you've got wellies on because there's always water on deck, like in the fishing boat. So you're always like ankle deep in water, because the water splashes in onto the boat, and then it, you know, funnels out on these, you know, hatches down the side, which lets the water out. So you're in the sea. You're in the sea. And, at this point I'm thinking, fucking hell, this is fucking mental. This, kind of enjoying it though. It's fucking exciting, like, I remember being in the boat, and you're always getting tossed about as well. So I was fucking, there's nothing still. You're always fucking clanking about all in all directions, crashing and banging and fucking. And skipper on, clever shade. Says, "Oh, what you do, Rob? Oh, I'm a musician." "Well, all right now. You're a rock star, you?" I says, "Well," he says, what was the name of your band like?" I says, "There was a band called Appencraft I was in the 1980s. Never heard of them." I says, "Oh, we used to tour with Venom." He says, "Venom?" I says, "Aye." I says, "We sort of had the same management company and that we used to tour with them." He says, "I know Venom, right?" He says, "I know them." So from that moment, I was the rock star. It's like, rock star, do this, rock star, do that. And, he's got, this guy holds all the dices, man. He's the boss. There was these yellow life jackets, right? Yellow life jackets underneath this cupboard bit. And I pointed, I says, "What are them?" He says, "You don't want to fucking worry about them." Right? And it turns out there's no point in wearing them. That's what it turns out, because what happens is the water's so cold. This is one of the reasons why it's the most dangerous job in the world. The water's so cold, but even with a life jacket on, I mean, you're still sinking to the bottom after 3 minutes. Like, you go in the water, right? I mean, the life jackets will probably just take you away from the boat even quicker. But you go in the water, right, the water's so cold, your body freezes after 3 minutes. You cannot move your arms or legs, so you just start sinking, and that's it. You're dead. So, and then obviously there's such big waves and such strong currents. It's like if you go overboard, you're gone in seconds. Like, there's no amount of twisting and turning the boat around to find you. You're gone, man. You're just dead. So I'm starting to realise all this. You see, I'm starting to think, oh fucking hell, this isn't the whole Zeebrugge ferry, is it? Dover Calais. This is a little bit more intense than that. Like, he tested us one night. It's pitch black. It's a scene out of a movie. We're in a storm. The boat's side to side, clanking away. Bang, bang, from the hull up and down against these waves. He says, "Rob, you've got to see," and out at the front. I don't know if it was something that needed to be done, or it was a test. I think it was just a test. I had to go to the front of the boat in the pitch black, in a storm, massive giant waves. The boat, little fishing boat, tilting all the way over, and that's another thing. It would get all the way out of one side and all the way out of the other. You got to go and put that mast to run there on that pole right out there. I says, "Was fucking blowing a storm. It's pissing down the rain. It's like fucking hell. It's a nightmare. It's a scene from a movie." And he says, "No, you're gonna have to go and do it." And I'm not doing it. I'm steering the fucking boat, mate. And so I went out, and that's exactly what I did. So I'm walking along this thin little plank of wood along the side of the ship, trying not to get into the water, clinging on. I'm not clinging on for my life or feeling any fear, really. I'm just, this is what has to be done, and I'm going to do it. And I went and done it, and I got back in the boat, and obviously soaking wet and all that, and fucking storms crashing about. And he says, "Fucking hell," he says, not many would have done that, like. I remember years later telling me, I know I've told my granddad these stories, but my grandfather, who was in the Royal Navy, like during the war, he's seen some action, like. And obviously, as a teenager with a long hair, he probably thought I was a bit of a disappointment. But he'd said to me mother or something, when he found out later that I'd done that on the fishing boat, he says, She says, you know what, I'm really proud of Robert. And of course, nobody else knows what that means. You say he knows the sea. He's an old sailor, and he knows what it would be like to be in a little fishing boat in them sort of waters. Like, so, you know, the sort of the long-haired layboat turned out all right at the end, as far as Ghana was concerned, you know. And so, you know, there's a story I've already told about. You would get the big cages that could catch the crabs, right? Well, I really struggled with them, like, because they weighed a fucking ton, like, and fortunately, fisherman Bill stepped in and he fucking started doing my work. Well, I couldn't fucking lift them. I could do like 3 on top of each other, and then, but they were stacking them 6, 7 high. I couldn't do it, and I physically couldn't do it. You know, it's just not in us, you know. And I tried, you know, because I didn't want to get a bollocking. You know, especially when you're on this tiny little boat full of this fucking nutter, this skipper, nut fucking crackerjack. But I remember one time I was stood there doing that, and pulling the big cages up out of the sea, you know, which, you know, I mean, these are big
cages.
And Bill sort of screaming at us, "Watch it," pointing down at my feet. And I just jumped in the air and jumped away because the rope was spinning round, you know. So if that got caught around my legs, that's a common one, that actually. As the cage goes, the cage is about the size of a trampoline, a round trampoline, garden trampoline. It's about the size of them. So the big heavy things, like. And they're obviously on a long rope, you know, as the plummet to the bottom of the sea and they sit on the surface of the bottom of the sea for the crabs king crabs, not little crabs, massive king crabs to go in and get caught. Well, these ropes flick about and they'll get around your legs and they'll drag you down. So again, that was one of the 9 lives. I mean, I used on the fishing boat, I probably used up about, if a cat has 9 lives, I used up 8 on that trip, like, unbelievable, like. And so that was there was this one moment when I was just sort of on my own. There was nobody about, and the cage came up, and there wasn't out in it. But then at the back of the cage, there's this octopus. I've never seen an octopus in my life, and I'll never will again. But I was struck by its eyes. I mean, it was the size of a dog. The bulbousness of it and its long legs, it was massive. But its eyes, the way, like a human's eyes, it looked at us, like in shock. It was shocked to see us, and its tentacles were feeling behind it, and it was moving backwards in the cage, and it was feeling for where it came in, right? And it was watching us the whole time, and then it very sneakily just sort of dropped itself back out, and then dropped back into the sea. And I was gobsmacked by that, just by its, I mean, you know, you see cats and dogs and cattle and all sorts of animals, birds, but these eyes were like just so like human, its reaction. And I was just gobsmacked by that, like, this, on that sort of day, that was a bit of a calmer, the sea was calmer that day. I think, but then again, the next day, fucking storms. I remember it was pitch black as well at night, halfway through the second week, and skipper runs at the wheel, and the storm's going on. We're getting battered about all over the place, massive waves and all that again, and I'm sort of sat there. You know, I'm fucking exhausted by this point. You know, this is just you hardly get any fucking sleep. Like, you hardly get any. You don't sleep like, oh, it's like 9 o'clock at night. I'm going for a sleep now until 6 o'clock in the morning. No, you work, and then you might get 2 hours here. You know, an hour there. That's it. You don't get regular sleep, like, you know. So after a couple of weeks, you sort of you do wally in your head a little bit, like. and Skipper runs at the wheel, and I'm watching him. He's falling asleep at the wheel. I've never seen that before. Where I'm actually you're talking with somebody and they're falling asleep in front of you, and he keeps on knocking himself awake, forcing himself awake. This is happening. Then he says, "Look," he says, "You're gonna Rockstar, you're gonna have to steer the boat." And I'm like, "Right." I says, it's obviously blowing a gale, lashing down with rain. We're in a storm. It's middle of the night, pitch black, tilting side to side all over the place. We're in a disaster movie. He says, just steer. He says, you see that this is the radar there. So there's like a radar with green dots on it. He says, you got to be careful. He says, the green dots. He says, these green dots are trees, right? If you see one of these coming, wake me up. He'll jump at this. He says, well, if you see that, wake us up, and I'm going to steer and get away, because that's a fucking tree that floating about in the water. Right? Basically, in the old trees. Now, you imagine what the trees are like in Canada. Monster trees. So how is there a massive tree trunk the size, literally the length of a double-decker bus, and nearly the thickness, half the thickness, where it's like a single-decker bus. It's a single-decker bus of tree bobbing around in storms. What the fuck's that doing there? In the northwest, 100 mile out, in the middle of the sea, northwest coast of Alaska, southern Alaska waters. What the fuck's that doing there? Well, what happens is the loggers, they log the trees, and then they get loosened. And, up at the land there along the coast, some of them come out, a lot of them come out, and they get into the sea. And that's another thing that wipes out the fishing boats, the fishermen. That's another big thing that gets people killed, So look for a green dot. So that's what he's telling us. So he's snoring away on the settee there, just to the left of us. I've got my hand on the steering wheel. I'm looking ahead, and there's this little windscreen where I'm working its arse off as usual. It's pitch black. There's like a faint beam of white light, headlight shining out. I can just sort of see the big rolling heavy waves in the pitch black of night through this white glow. Fucking just keeping it, just got to keep the wheel pointing in this direction, with this lined up with a radar thing, and look for green dots. So I'm just doing that. And I did see a fucking massive fucking tree trunk, like. And I think I saw something coming across her, and I've woken him up. I think, to tell you the truth, I don't know if I woke him up or what the fuck happened, but I think it just glided past her. It might have just caught us off. And this thing it's like a wheel. Just fucking went across the front of the boat like fucking hell. And shit. And I might have woke him up, and he might have. I think I woke him up, and he steered out the way, and he said something like, "Well done." I think that happened. Now the previous day, actually, this wasn't the next day. I think this is why he's offered us to do the steering, because the previous day, this is in the daytime, and he'd been saying, I'm at the boat at the back with Bill, and we're bringing the cages up. It's still rough. It's rough seas, but it's daytime. And we're getting backwards and forwards, rolling about, and he's shouting over. If you see any tree trunks, trees, tell us. If you see any, and I'm thinking in my head, fucking trees, what the fuck's trees going about? Trees. He says, if you see any trees out when you're doing this, tell us. And as he said it, as I'm looking at him, I see a double-decker bus-sized tree to the right. And he says, fucking tell us. And I says, what? I says, what, like that one? And he's turned around and he's went, for fuck's sake. And he's just dived back in and then he's fucking spinning the wheel and we're fucking spinning around in a circle, and trying to just avoid this fucking thing hitting her. Absolute panic stations. And then the boat, it's gone off to the left. The boat sort of stops and he comes out the cabin. He's fucking flummoxed as fuck. And he's fucking saying, he says, well done. He says, well done. That's it, well done. And I think he got a fucking shock there, like. He got a big shock there. And so that got us a tick in his book, but I didn't think it made any difference either. I didn't fucking make hardly money out of it, by the way. He fucking ripped us off. Like a music promoter or manager. Fuck, I ripped us off, you know. I mean, I don't know how much he made, but the crab fishing is a shitload of money, you know. But I think at the end, I think I got money. I think Fisherman Bill gave us some of his fucking wage packet because this cunt wasn't going to give us out, you know. Because the skipper wrong. I think he introduced us to this fucking bloke one time. Said, well, this is fucking British lad. He's on his holidays, you know. He's on a fishing holiday, you know, which I was like. It's an adventure, like, you know. When they're risking their lives, and I'm sort of green and naive, you know, as well, and I'm having this experience, you know. But you still should pay the man, like, you still should pay the man. He's probably dead now, this fella. Probably fucking dead now. If he's not, then, you know, I hope he paid. I hope he paid, you know, fishing lads after me. Like, I hope because I did find out that he had a bit of a bad reputation in Prince Rupert, like, you know. At the end of the day, you know, he's probably an okay lad, like, you know, but he didn't have nah. But there wasn't many had much good words to say about him. And I think that's why I got in the boat, you know, because nobody wanted to get on the boat with him, you know. And Bill, the Hell's Angel lad, he's one of them lads who, you know, he could be, you know, well, you wouldn't mess with Bill if he's in part of the Hell's Angels, you know. So, I mean, it's still not our, like, I mean, I'm still doing all that, and it's still fucking madness, like. I'm just reading a little bit here, see if I'm forgetting out. There was some, so we'll get back, and there's one last thing I had to do was go in the hull of the boat, you know, which apparently freaks people out. It didn't really freak me out, like, which is the hull of the boat is like a hatch. That's where all the king crabs get put, and they're in there with ice. So it's because they don't want them dead, but they want them sort of paralysed in cold. You know, so there's still a little bit of movement on them. So I gone down there, you know, 6 foot deep of fucking whatever it was, king crabs, and I'm putting them in a basket, picking them up. There's a bit of movement on them. Some of them are trying to snap it, yeah. And put in a basket, it's lifted up, and Skipper runs, you know, probably grinning at all the fucking money he's going to be making, you know. And I'm doing that dirty work doing there. One of the fuckers, not fuckers, poor crabs, you know, but I did get a bit on the finger, you know, bite on the finger. Just spliced me skin a little bit, you know. And after that, he said again, Skipper, he says, Rockstar, he says, there's not many who would have done that, like, you know, down there. No, it's just whatever, you know. Aye. Thanks, Skipper on, but I suppose the check's in the post there. And then I saw Steve. Steve told us about his experience. And it was going to be a week before any money was due. So I was back in the campsite, pissing down the rain all the time. And I remember just being in Prince Rupert along the street, and I saw this Indian Native American guy, and I was kind of becoming. I always think about this. Like, I started off the whole trip as a cowboy. I bought the cowboy hat back in wherever it was down near Florida, and but I ended up a Native American. Like, not, I mean, with the necklaces and the fucking long hair and the look of us, like, and because I started noticing the wood carvings and stuff, and just the Native American art of that area, the British Columbia. Well, it wasn't originally called that, obviously, and that was getting into us. Like, now I thought, like, well, I've done this sort of this white man's fucking conquering of the sea. I think I'm sort of going a little bit sort of Japanese. I hear, like, I think I'm going a little bit Native American. I'm certainly really interested in the artwork, the art that I'm seeing, like and the wood carvings. It seems to be, I'm seeing all these wood carvings everywhere by these Native Americans. I'm in the high street, and well, not the high street, the main street, and there's a Native American guy, and he's dancing around in a circle around this sort of this wooden thing he's got on the road. How they would dance. You'd see them on the movies. He's doing a bit of that sort of thing. And I says, this fellow, what's he doing? He says, oh, he's driving out the evil spirits from the strip club. And I thought that was fucking cool as fuck. I thought, I fucking so he should be, So doing that, Steve turns up. He's back off his prawn fishing boat trip, hell. I remember we're in the strip bar. We went in the strip bar because it was fucking raining outside, and Steve, we want to go in anywhere. I remember fucking this, watching a stripper and all that, and she fucking bent down to us and she says, like, you're supposed to give fucking money, man. So I was supposed to put money in her big fucking knickers or something, I had no money. I'm fucking waiting for me money coming, and she sort of stormed off the stage, fucking crying. Well, not crying, like, but just pissed off, Steph's stripper girlfriend wasn't there. It was just me and Steve, and literally, and then there was this bloke. I don't know if he was the girlfriend of the stripper, but he's trying his best to have a fight with us, trying his best, and just didn't happen, he didn't have the intelligence. It's too clever for him. And I don't know if it was a few days later or something, I'm in the strip bar or something, and Fisherman Bill came in and he gave us a few $100, I think it was out of his own pocket. And, I think it was out of his own pocket, And that would have really been bad, because by this time, me and Steve were in the community a bit, like, we'd also done, me and Steve would also done, sanded the floor of this, like, creative art shop down at the harbour, because there would still be a few little bits of tourist stuff. So there was a woman, she worked in there, like, artsy sort of thing, and we done the work for them. We got a little bit of money for doing that. So and there was a few parties and stuff like that. So we were in, the sort of 20-somethings and all that. What you would have in a small town like that, and everybody sort of knows everybody. So we were Rob and Steve. So and so the fact that it would have got out that I didn't really get paid for that. Wouldn't stood Skipper Ron in people would have been like, fucking hell, he's done that again. I remember this lad did say as well, he said on the boat, like, he's at the harbour, he sort of pulled us to one side. He says, I got offered to come on this boat. He says, I'll not get on the boat with him. Like, I says, oh, fucking great. So I've just done 2 weeks with him. So, you know, I don't know how things worked out for Ron, like. But, you know, it was an experience on the fishing boat. And I suppose, you know, if Ron had been like a great guy, you know, I mean, it's all these things that make it sort of more interesting, you know, make it more real, you know. When you see the cowboy movies, you know, you see the Outlaw Josie Wales, you know, The Unforgiven, all these movies, it's fucking real people, man. They're not, some of them are just, you know, that's people, that's great, you know. And I was in the movie, man. I was in the movie. I wasn't like fucking on stage with Applecraft, you know. I wasn't like fucking, you know, a student in a fucking indie rock band with the Shapes or all of those things. This is fucking real shit, man. Risking me life, real movies. It wasn't, I've never done anything since. The whole experience, that's why I'm talking about it now. I've never done anything like this. I would not want to. But it was just all the planets were aligned. And I know people go away and have travels all the time and do that as well. But, you know, you can have travels and you can have travels. It's just one of them things. It's the age of you. It's just all the planets align. And, you know, forget about being a rock star or, you know, any experience. I think, you know, I was just lucky to have that experience. And, you know, back at Prince Rupert, rain. I get offered, and I'm glad I didn't take it. Fucking hell, am I glad I didn't take it. But because Steve was with Steph, the stripper lass, well, I'm not saying stripper lass, she's just a lass, you just do a bit of that, you know. And she was a canny lass, Steph. And they were hanging out together, shagging constantly. Like, I mean shagging constantly, for fuck's sake. They got thrown off the fucking campsite for shagging constantly, you know. So Steve was like staying with Steph in somewhere, and I was still on the tent, you know. There's this lad who I was mates with. He was, I don't know if he'd even been on the fishing boat, but he's still there anyway. And I got offered to do, and I went and met the fella. He was an older fella, and he had a big fishing boat, and he was going to go tuna fishing, right, in the Pacific, Southern Pacific, right. And I went and see, like a job interview. I went to see him, and he was asking us. He says one of the questions was, he says, "What do you like, Pepsi or Coca-Cola?" And I says, "Oh, I like Pepsi." He says, "That's good. It's good. I like the Pepsi as well." So what he was sort of doing was trying to find out, you know, how we're going to get along. So just fucking stupid questions there. I'm thinking tuna. I'm thinking just something the size of a salmon. Fucking tunas are massive. Tunas are fucking enormous. I didn't even realise that at the time. I would have been shocked. What, I've got to cut this poor fucking thing open. And, you know, hundreds a day. So, God, I was lucky to get away with that, like, because we're all set to go a week later, and that would have been 3 months. 3 months at sea with this fella who was a bit cookie, really. And, you know, gutting and cutting open big, massive tunas, which would have been, I mean, if Prince Rupert, you know, were like 100 mile, a couple of days, put in a fishing boat back to shore, back to base. You know, still well out in the whales, like the water, but I mean, to be right in the middle of the Pacific fucking Ocean, and this guy isn't, you know, he's hardcore, like he's not gonna, you would just disappear, you know, you would just come back and say, "Oh, you fell overboard," you know, yeah, fucking lost him, if I wasn't doing my job. There must be a lot of that going on, you know. It's tragic, you know. I'm not saying he would have done that. But that's just the, you know, just the things that fucking crazy things are going on in your head when you think about stuff. But I remember Steph saying something like, no, Rob, I strongly advise you not to go with this fella. I don't know what you said, but, and I'd borrowed I think I'd borrowed he gives $100. I borrowed $100 off him at my job interview. I says, well, I'm getting $100 off him, he's like, I'm going to make a good bit of money here, he's giving us $100 in advance. And the sister says, well, I'm not sure about this at all. And then the next day, I went to see him. He says, forget about it, man. I says, what? He says, you asked for $100, which I gave you in advance. He says, you've done no work for us. He says, I don't want you on my boat. You failed the test, type of thing. And I was like, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, fucking hell, I got away with that, because I would have went, because I'd fucking dug myself. I was saying to Steve and Steph, I was saying, I'm going, I'm going to go and do that. I'm going to make a load of money. So I would have went, Jesus. And so in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, great. And I think I said, well, what about your $100? And he says, just keep it. Just keep it. So I got away with that. That would have made the crab fishing trip seem like, just fucking kids play. That thing. So back in the campsite, and I'm saying to Steve, I'm starting to feel like, I liked Steph, but two's company, three's a crowd. And, when you've been through so many experiences with somebody, it's, me and Steve were very different as well. Very similar in a lot of ways, but very different as well. And obviously, the most thing about, I'm day person, he's a fucking night person, he's Motley Crue, and I'm fucking, think of a band, daytime band, I'm not fucking Motley Crue, so, he says, well, look, Steve, I says, either stay here with Steph, ultimatum time, or you come with me, and we'll just start heading south and just get out of this fucking place. We've been here, done this. And what he done was he said to Steph, I'll let him cool down a bit. This is what he said. He says, he'll have said, I'll go with him. I'll let him cool down a bit, and then you can come and join me, right? Which is exactly what happened, further down the road. And I'll leave it at that. So that's the end of that story. That's the end of that little chapter, which ends with me and Steve on the outskirts of Prince Rupert, pissing down a rain, tarpaulins over the tower, back to the thumbs being stuck out on the road. And funny me, I don't know if Steve was out. Steve was the same, but I've always been like this. It's such a rush to leave. I've always felt like that. And it's like that now. When I go somewhere, I fucking love leaving. It's such a fucking great feeling. I mean, often I go back to places all the time, but I love it when you're gone somewhere and you do something and then you leave. You just go because you're gone somewhere else. I love that.